Hello and welcome to the HBC Studios. I'm your host for today's special show, Ty Schwartzlow. I'm joined alongside Nick Winecke, head coach of the St. Mary's Baseball Program and a Cardinal for life. Let's talk a little bit about yourself individually here and give the viewers a better idea of what your life has been in terms of the game of baseball. My first question, what role has the sport played in your life?
Well, baseball has been important to me since I've been a little kid. I remember going to watch all my uncles play through high school and then college here at St. Mary's. So it's been what I've loved since I've been a little kid. One of my uncles jokes that when he was babysitting me when I was a little kid, all he had to do was just put a baseball game on, and I was easy to watch. But when the baseball game went to commercial, I guess I would cry until the game came back on. So I guess that in a nutshell kind of explains what the game means to me.
Who would have thought the first minute of the interview I found a similarity between you and I, possibly. Fair to say you're a bigger fan of watching sports growing up than cartoons.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Both athletics and coaching are significant commitments. There's no way around it. When and how did you know just how involved you wanted to be with the game?
Yeah, I think from the playing side, obviously, I just love every bit of it. But from the coaching side, I knew I wanted to get into coaching at a pretty young age, probably about high school. I knew this was what I wanted to do. My Uncle John was a big influence in that. He was the softball coach at St. Mary's when he won the national championship, and then he's been the softball coach up at University of St. Thomas and won 2 national championships up there. So I've been very fortunate to have him as a wonderful mentor. I used to go with him a lot of times to go watch games, go recruiting. So the bug got in me at a pretty early age, and I had a great person to follow. So,
do you have an early experience of direct coaching that I have a talent for this? You know, maybe I have a future with this. Is there an early experience you think of or go back to?
Yeah, actually, I go back to probably early high school days. I was fortunate enough to work a lot of camps for Dennis Denning, a legendary coach up in St. Paul.
Okay.
Also for my uncle. And then also for Jim O'Neill, my high school coach at Creighton Hall. All 3 of those guys were phenomenal coaches. But when you get to do camps, it's kind of like a laboratory a little bit. You get to try different things. And I think for me, the biggest thing is just when you see a kid understand it or get it, their face just kind of lights up. And that's a feeling that is contagious, and you'd like to get that. So I think really growing up and having the opportunity to work camps at a pretty young age, it really helped me to figure out, okay, this is kind of what I want to do.
One thing some viewers may not know is that you were a player at St. Mary's and graduated in 2007. What brought you to St. Mary's University originally?
Yeah, I think number one, we were just talking off camera. It's been a school that a lot of my family have gone to. My cousin Bob right now is here. He plays baseball and hockey, and he's the 11th one from our family to go to St. Mary's. So it was a pretty easy decision for me. You know, I didn't look at a whole lot of other schools. Seriously, I looked at some, but I kind of knew that St. Mary's was the right fit for me, academically, socially, and then athletically too as well.
And then after your playing days, we'll move on to the quick turnaround and staying in the community at St. Mary's. But first, Coach, I've got some statistics here. From my perspective, you played the game with a coach's mindset. And talking to you about some of your strengths and weaknesses as a player, can you talk to me about the challenges you faced and how you were able to overcome them with the mental side of the game?
Yeah, the mental side to me, I think, is everything. And that's something that I learned a lot from my college coach, Nick Whaley, who has been a great mentor to me, and I love playing for him. He's actually on our coaching staff right now still. I just think the mental side of it, I wasn't an overly talented kid. I wasn't an overly talented baseball player, but I think the trust and belief in the process of getting better, and also just going out there and putting the hard work in. I think that kind of defines it a little bit. The game is not an easy game, but the game will teach you an awful lot about life, and it'll teach you an awful lot about some tools and gifts you can use later on to help other people out.
A question I had before, you actually answered off air. What would you say, and why speak to the importance in terms of learning how to fail and understanding how to deal with failure? As a player, you had that experience. How does that translate into coaching?
Man, you really got to grow up really, really quick if you're going to get over it. My sophomore year, I set the record for errors in a season and errors in a career. It was a really tough year for me. But at that point, without going through that situation, I don't think I had the opportunity to be a head coach at 23 years old. because when you're a sophomore, and I think at that time I was 20 years old, you're either forced to grow up or you're forced to stay a little kid. So you got to show up and you got to work every day, even when things aren't going your way. But I think that year really helped me evolve and really grow up and understand that there's more to the game than just the game itself, and your teammates rely on you. I also learned a lot about what it means to be a great teammate. I had wonderful teammates that supported me even though I was killing us. But I go back and I reference that a lot. And I also had a wonderful coach that stuck with me and knew long term that it would be good for me. And I think going into my senior year, I think it paid off tremendously.
The biggest point I want to talk about is the mental challenge. In baseball, that is one of the most paramount pieces of adversity you're going to face. Was there a strategy that got you through that moment, or was it just a matter of that work ethic, grinding the hours out and making sure that the repetitions were there?
Yeah, the mental part's the critical piece. I think when you're mentally there, that allows you to be consistent. It allows you to stay off that roller coaster of being the highs of the highs and the lows of the lows. It starts with the mental part. Number one, believing in yourself, having confidence in yourself, but that starts with the work ethic you put in. You can believe in yourself all you want, but if you're not willing to put the hours in, it's not going to pair up right. So when you go through it, I think you have to, number one, be willing to put the work in, believe in the process, trust the process, and then number two, being able to be mentally tough enough to be able to handle the good and the bad. You look at all those that are great throughout, great leaders, great athletically, they're the same person when things are going good and then when things are going bad. They're not different people, and I think that's the critical part that allows you to be consistent.
I'm looking over your stat line from your senior year. 19 walks compared to 12 strikeouts, a 374 average, 478 on base. You could do some damage at the plate. I want to know, what is the bigger source of pride, your batting numbers or the 6 errors in 977 fielding percentage, which is a significant improvement in your senior year?
Yeah, my sophomore year I played short, which I learned that year that I think shortstop's the most difficult position to play on the field. My senior year, I was able to play probably my best position, which is first base.
Okay.
So that helped out a lot. But I think it's more the evolution of the person I was to the person I turned into through the 4 years. So I look at the whole body of work. I don't necessarily look at those numbers. Numbers are great. That's awesome. But I look at, okay, was I a better person as a senior than I was a freshman? Was I a better student? All those things I can look back and say, hey, I believe that I evolved over my 4 years. A lot has to be because of what St. Mary's is all about as a community. But I think you look at the whole body of work, not necessarily just that 1 year. So
I would ask you, but I've learned a lesson myself, so I find it impossible to believe if you didn't apply that. You see somebody at shortstop, maybe you're a little bit of a detriment. Put that person in a position to succeed, and you'll be amazed at the potential that they may have. So from a coaching standpoint, I've got to imagine that plays into things and into your success. My next question, what is the biggest source of pride that Cardinal Baseball has personally provided you with?
Family atmosphere, I think, number one. It was like that when I was here as a player. It's something that we work hard on right now as a group. There's not one person bigger than the program, and that's from a player to a coach. If a player leaves, if the coach leaves, the program's still here. So there's not one person bigger than the program. There's not one role that's more important to the program. But we really try to create a family atmosphere, a group of brothers that when you leave here, you can call those people throughout your life when things are going good and then when things are going bad as well. So just creating that culture, I think, is critical.
You mentioned Nick Whaley and the fact that he's been able to help you and actually be on your coaching staff. How does that help to reinforce the family culture at St. Mary's?
I think it's critical. I think the one thing I love about having Coach Whaley is we had a really good relationship when I played for him. It's a special relationship. It continues to be a special relationship. He knows what I'm thinking. He also knows what buttons to push with me. So if he feels like we need to get going a little bit, he knows what he needs to do to get me going. But he also knows how to pull me back a little bit too. And it's important to have those people in life that will tell you how it is. And I think that's the relationship we have. But what he brings to our program is a maturity, is a father-like figure. Our players absolutely love him. It's a great role for him, and I don't think we would have success without him, and all our coaches that we have on our staff all bring something very special to our program.
Let's talk a little bit about the early days of you as a coach, being 23, the head of a program. What advice would you give a young leader in terms of leading others who may not only have more experience, but also as well be older in that regard?
Yeah, I was fortunate. At least I didn't have any players that were older than me age-wise. But I think the number one thing that I learned was you have to learn how to manage people. I think that's a critical part. You have to learn how people are different, and you have to educate yourself. I think those are the two big things that I learned. Continue to educate yourself and focus a lot on how people work, how people are different, how people learn, and what it takes to be a leader. I think X's and O's you put in that position, yeah, I think everybody's about the same, give or take, but it's the difference is can you lead a group, get a group going in the same direction at the same time. So management, I think, is a critical piece that I would recommend to any coach, young or old, to continue to educate themselves in that area.
We talked a little bit about the experience of your sophomore season, how it's helped you modify your approach. Has there been another part that's noteworthy in terms of how your approach has evolved?
Actually, getting my master's I thought was a critical piece. I've got my master's through St. Mary's in human development with an emphasis in leadership and sports psychology. Going through my master's I thought was a critical piece. I read a lot, I did a lot of research. It really helped me evolve as a person, and then it helped me evolve as a coach as well. I thought when I went through that, I got better as a person and as a coach. So that's a piece I thought was critical.
And as we move forward now into the 2016 season, I think the appropriate starting point is the concept of 53-on-1. Can you explain that concept for viewers who may not be familiar, and how does it apply with your program?
Yeah, it all starts with every year we read a book as a program. This year we read a book called Finish It. It's written by a former player at the University of Alabama softball team that talked about winning a national championship, and she did a wonderful job. It just talks about their journey as a team and what they learned, and they had a similar idea. We just took how many people were in our program, including our coaches and strength coach, and it comes to 53, with the idea that if 53 of us are going in the same direction at the same time, it's going to be really tough to beat. But we need all 53 of us going in the same direction at the same time. As soon as you start to get 50, the one being the opponent that you're playing, but as soon as you get people to off of your ship, so to say, they go down to 1 or 2 to 3 to 4. Now it becomes a little bit difficult. But if you can stay 53 on 1, I think you got a good shot all the time.
Obviously, with the season being over, that concept is a little bit more difficult to hold on to. But I'm curious, is it over? It's moved on from, or are you guys still united as a program? How much of that 53-on-1 still remains as we're sitting in May?
Yeah, I think it's critical. I think it's been something that we've worked hard within our culture to create this idea. This really resonated with this group. Is it going to be what we use next year? Probably not, because we have a different group. We have different needs. We have a completely different team, I always say. The one thing about college athletics, as soon as you take one person off and add one person, it's a different team. So you have to be able to adjust to what that group needs. This group needed this. This group needed this. It was important for this group. It doesn't mean it's right for the next group. The idea will always be there. The idea is part of what our culture is. Just this slogan, this idea resonated really well with this group. And it worked out really, really well for this group.
Yeah, I would highly encourage anybody who didn't get a chance to read Donnie Netto's article on stmarysports.com. Be sure to check it out. And the reason I asked that follow-up was it's oftentimes in sports can be too much about the win-loss, the outcome, the game on the field. This concept was very apparent that it transcended into life, and I think that's absolutely important. Coach, with 13 seniors listed on this year's roster, what were the expectations entering this season?
It's funny because people ask that question a lot, and our expectations that we have for our program is number one, be good people. Number two, 100% effort. And the third thing is 100% attention to detail. Those are the three things we ask out of our guys in our program, and if they can do that, then we're happy. The win-loss will take care of themselves, I believe, long term. And it all goes back into some bigger ideas, but essentially those are the big three things. Be a good person, 100% effort, 100% attention to detail, and come game day, then we can live with the results.
I'm going to pull a Dean Beckman here. The 3 cardinal rules, would you say it was a success for this year's group?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you look at what we've been able to accomplish, obviously win-loss wise, what we were able to do in the record book, but I think more importantly, I think it's our job as coaches to prepare our guys to be highly successful when they leave this university. And I feel really good about our seniors leaving and having tools and having the ability to be successful. And to me, that's what it's all about. So, yep, the success on the field, that's awesome, but it's also the success that our seniors are going to have in life. And I think that's the piece that wins more than anything else.
How would you describe that group's ability to impact others? Not just the players who are seeing every inning of every game, but from 1 through 13, every single guy seemed to make an impact.
Yeah, it was a special group. Not all those guys played significant innings over their 4 years or even their senior year. But their ability to understand the importance that they had in the program. We talked this year, you want to leave your jersey in a better place than where you found it. And I believe absolutely they did that. This group was a special group. I tell people all the time, it's been out recruiting now this week since we finished. You have a lot of people come up and say congratulations. And, I tell people all the time is this group didn't want to be done. And that's the part that's tricky. There's some years you get done and you can kind of tell by the group that they're kind of ready. This group genuinely did not want to be done working with one another, playing with one another, hanging out with one another. So it is just a really special group full of great kids from seniors down to freshmen.
You talk about that group and what they were able to do down the stretch, winning 8 of their last 9 in the regular season, making a MIAC playoff run to the title game, giving yourself a chance when the NCAA announcement was made. Can you set the scene and give us an idea of just how you and the program went through that experience of finding out the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, it's we were together as a group and we found out that we wouldn't be advancing on. It's tough, it's difficult, without a doubt. It's emotional, but you know what? That's life, and you don't always get what you want in life. And that's how it works. And yep, are you sad? Yeah, you're sad because this is the last time this group will be able to be with one another and play a game. But at the flip side, it doesn't take away from all the good things that this group has been able to do and the legacy that the seniors left behind. And it just goes to, when you play this game, you can always look back and go, well, if we would have won this game, or if we would have done this, or if this would have happened, you can't live like that. I tell our guys all the time, you can't drive down the road looking in the rearview mirror because bad things are going to happen. So you got to move on, you got to move forward, you got to learn from the good and the bad. But it doesn't take away what this group has been able to accomplish, which was a really fun and exciting year. It was great for us coaches to be able to coach them. Because they're a group that did so much, and it was fun to get out there for all of us to get out there and work with one another.
All right, I want to bring some levity to the conversation because it seemed like it was a very fun year from an outsider's perspective. One memorable moment that I have, it comes courtesy of a Rick Palermo's social media page,
okay.
And I couldn't believe, from a coach's perspective, you have a manager wearing a GoPro on his head throughout the entire game. That's perfectly fine in itself, that he wouldn't get distracted, that it would play a bigger piece of the puzzle. What does that say about the group as a whole, that they were able to support Rick's pursuit of his dreams and how he's trying to get better, as well as your program?
Yeah, Rick would come to me all the time with, hey, do you mind if I put the GoPro on so-and-so during infield, outfield? To me, I think you have to have a maturity and you have to have an understanding that, hey, that shouldn't influence or affect anything else. It allows Ricky to follow his dreams, and Ricky's being given us in our program an awful lot. He's just like a player. He just contributes in a different way. But you also get the opportunity to capture a lot of cool moments. There's a moment now that I'm kind of thinking about it at Gustavus. Ricky's wearing the GoPro. Bob Kinney comes up and hits a go-ahead. I believe it was a 3-run home run to put us up in the last inning, and be able to see the reaction on the bench. You lose those opportunities. That's kind of the cool thing now with social media. You have those experiences, but they're only positive if you only use them in a positive way. And as long as they're not a distraction, it's okay. And I think that just comes with the maturity of your group being able to handle that. This group was able to handle it, and it didn't really bug me one bit. If it was something that I thought was out of line, we would probably not be doing it. So, but they also, you got to give the players a lot. They don't take advantage of things, and I think that's a critical piece too.
Just from a media perspective, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a selfish tangent. Yeah, it is. With Rick to be able to show and gain that trust from the media with the coaching staff and the program, it's obviously easier because he's a part of the program, but I'm excited for that because I think it's a bigger initiative. We're not trying to take advantage. The media shouldn't be trying to take advantage, get that quote from a coach and put it out of context, and that's what I'm excited about moving forward. We can become more ingrained in these programs where we can pull some life lessons out. Maybe we're not there practice day in, day out, but I've learned a lot from your program, and I'm appreciative of that, and I'm appreciative of what your group was able to do. Because I think there was certainly a story worth telling, and although we weren't able to see it on TV 25 as much as we'd like, I'm thrilled that we're able to have you in studio here today. We have what's called walk-off questions here on Sports Buzz, so this is hopefully the most difficult one. What's the legacy of this year's group, the graduates from St. Mary's Baseball?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it starts with unselfishness. I think it defines this group. Hardworking, determined. Last year, going into last year was the first time. Last year was the first time in 3 years we didn't make the conference tournament. So I think getting back, that was a high priority for them. But I think the type of people they were, that's the legacy they leave behind. They showed everybody in the program what it means to buy into roles, what it means to put the team first. I'll give you a kind of a glimpse into them. I met with all the seniors before senior day. And at that point, we were playing for a conference title or a share for the conference title. And I told them, I said, hey, I would love to play each and every one of you for the whole game. But if I did that, that wouldn't be right by the group. And I said, but if we have any issues with this as a group, you seniors, I said, I'm all ears and I'll listen. And I kind of went around to each one and they said, nope, we're going to do what's best by the group. I don't care if I don't play on senior day. If it gives this group the best chance to be successful, then that's what it's all about. That defines the group. Because it would have been very easy for them to say, you know what, I've put in 4 years, I would really like to play. But they didn't do that. That speaks to the volume of who they are as people. But it also speaks to their families and the way they were brought up. We can't forget that a lot of times. If they don't come from good families, they don't understand these things. And so really a lot of credit goes to their parents for raising great kids. It goes to the university for allowing us to bring these kids in too as well. So the legacy, I think, is very bright. I think it will be everlasting. And they will always be a part of our program, just like everybody that graduates from our program are always a part of our family. They just influence us and help us in different ways.
That's a fitting way to end it. Family and friends, they sacrifice for one another. Senior day to sacrifice the last chance for you to take the field. I think that really says it all. Coach, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Appreciate
and
it.
we look forward to continuing to increase coverage here over the future. But
Sounds great.
Nonetheless, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
And that'll wrap up the show here, joined by Nick Winecke to wrap up a memorable season for the St. Mary's Cardinals.